Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. Like wool. Wool's itchy. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad abda khalqihi wa adada kawakib wa nujum wa adada awraq al-ashjar wa adada ahl al-jannah wa adada ahl al-nar. You're inside, you can't hear. Bismillah. We praise Allah Azza wa Jal, the living, Al-Hayy, Al-Muhyi, the living, the one who gives life, and was poured out upon us, as I mentioned today, in the Bayan, Allah as Al-Hanan and Manan, Allah as the one who gives, He gives freely, and who has given us this night that we acknowledge and gather, as I mentioned also this earlier today, of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he met those companions who were gathered, remembering Allah Azza wa Jal, giving gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jal for this great gift of Islam, and that Allah gifted them with Him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And how Allah Azza wa Jal had sent Jibreel alayhi salam after Rasulullah took the oath from those companions not to question their sincerity, but the oath so that they could be informed of the coming of Jibreel alayhi salam. And Allah Azza wa Jal was boasting of those companions amongst the angels. And I believe, as I said today, this is my intention to be here tonight. What great and wondrous good news, a great bushra to those who gather, and in this land where Islam is new for many people, though Islam has been here for centuries, particularly through African American, the slaves who were brought here, who brought Islam with them, which has been documented. And now Islam is still growing, and we are able, despite those deniers, despite those who would deny such gatherings, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill the houses of Allah in this land with such gatherings as this, so that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will remember. And may we not be shy about proclaiming and making known who He was and what He is for us. And I'm sure over the months that I have been speaking to you before the Bayans, you would get glimpses of how I understand who the Prophet ﷺ is and what he means to me on many levels. I had thought, and it came to my mind, and I know that we have different cultural expressions of these Mawlid gatherings. And a few years ago, in 2011, I was on a Rihla program in Turkey, and one of the things I did was I read from Süleyman Çelebi. Süleyman Çelebi was the first imam of the Uludağ Masjid in Bursa. And the Uludağ Masjid is the largest mosque in Turkey when it comes to the number of people. And if anyone here been to Bursa before in Turkey? Anyone been there? If you've been to Bursa, it's this giant mosque, and it's just full of calligraphy. And what's unique about that mosque is that in the middle of the mosque, well, in the back, sort of the back center, is a fountain. And above the fountain, there were 17 domes in the masjid. And when the Sultan conquered Bulgaria, he prayed that, Allah, if you give me victory over Bulgaria, if I can conquer the Bulgarians, I will build 17 mosques. So what he did when Bulgaria was conquered, instead of building 17 mosques, he built a mosque with 17 domes. And each dome was to represent each mosque. And one of the domes was missing. And that's the dome, which today is a glass dome. And that's where, before that mosque, that dome was open, so the rainwater would collected on the roof would funnel down into the fountain, into the masjid. And that dome, what that is, was the woman who owned the land. And she wouldn't give the land to the Sultan to build the mosque. So when they cut the deal and finally got the land, that was the one place they left it open. As out of respect to the woman who owned it. Well, that's the story. But I read from, so Suleiman Chalabi was the first imam of that mosque. And the mosque was built, I think it was finished in 1360 something. And he was the first imam. And he wrote a Mawlid in the Ottoman language, which I have here. This is it on my computer. That's the Mawlid part of it in Ottoman. And when I was in Turkey, I read some of it. It's not what you would think of a typical Mawlid that you are familiar with. In this one bit that I was reading, it's a story, and it's called Ghaus-e-Azam. It's the story of the dove, which I thought I'd read to you tonight, but I'm not going to. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get me some other time to read this poem. I'll read the Ottoman, and then I'll translate it. But it's a really beautiful story. It's called the Ghaus-e-Azam. Ghaus-e-Azam is the word dove, Turkish Ghaus-e-Azam. But anyway, it would take too long, and you'll all get tired, and you would get bored with me. So I wouldn't want to do that. As I was saying today, I've been thinking about what to share with you tonight. So one thing I want to share with you, from the book I read from today, of Salihi, and this is the discussion on the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's about Al-Ashir, it's the 10th chapter in his series of chapters on the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's on Fi Huzn Iblis. It's on the chapter dealing with the sadness of Satan. How Iblis was saddened. MashaAllah. How Iblis, Allah curse him, was saddened with the birth of Muhammad ﷺ. وحجبه من السماوات, and is being veiled from the heavens. وما سمع من هواتف لما ولد الرسول, and things that were heard. Hawatif, things that people heard on the night of the Prophet's birth. So he mentions here نقل سحيلي وأبو ربيع وغيرهما عن تفسير حافظ بقي ابن مخلد رحمه الله تعالى أن إبليس رنى أرض رناء. Suhaili and Ibn Rabi' narrate that Iblis, Allah curse him, he shrieked, ranna, he shrieked, he screamed 4 times. There were 4 times Iblis screamed. Rannatan hina lu'ina, he screamed when Allah cursed him. When Allah cursed Iblis, when he didn't make sajda to Adam alayhi salam, he was cursed. And then he screamed at that. وَرَنَةً هِينَ أُهْبِتَ, he screamed when he was cast out of the garden, when he was cast out. Uhbita, when he was cast out. وَرَنَةً هِينَ وُلِدَ Muhammad, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he screamed when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born. وَرَادَةً حِينَ أُنزِلَتْ فَاتِحَةُ الْكِتَابِ and أُنزِلَتْ فَاتِحَةُ الْكِتَابِ and he screamed when the Fatiha was revealed. These are three places that Iblis screamed. He's cried out like someone who's in such loss and despair. They cry out of anguish. So Iblis had these four experiences of anguish. Two that deal with the paradisial realities, paradise, and that's another affair. And that's with the first man, Adam alayhi salam. And two, with the last prophet and the most noble of the sons and daughters of Adam alayhi salam. The man who was Dawat Abi Ibrahim wa Bashir to Isa. He said, the Prophet spoke of himself, I am the supplication of my father Abraham, and I am the good news of Isa alayhi salam. This is this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so there's these two juxtapositions, these two poles, the paradisial two outbursts, the curse and the casting out. The curse for not making sajda to Adam alayhi salam with the angels. The curse of having kibr. The curse of arrogance. And then the being cast out. Of being not able to get back into that paradisial space. The place where there's no death. The place where there is everlasting life. The place where there is no excessive cold or excessive heat. The place of life. The place of Allah's ridha. To be cast out and not to return. But that Adam, alayhi salam, that man, would have opportunities to return. And then the third and fourth outbursting of anguish, of huzn, Rannatan. This outburst of Iblis when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. When he was born. And as we mentioned today of that hadith from Muslim when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about fasting on Mondays, and we mentioned, you remember, that he was fasting. Why did I say it was? What was it for? Remember? Who was listening today? What were they? One was because wulidtu fihi, I was born on that Monday. What was the second one? Was what? With the revelation, unzilat alayya fihi, and revelation came upon me. Two things. His birth, his physical birth, after that light, that nur, has been transferred to the loins, the pure loins of men and women who are all married. There is no adulteress or adulterer in his lineage. That pure light from physical bodies, physical vessels, from loin to loin, that light which was seen on the forehead of his father, Abdullah alayhi salam. Seen on his father's forehead. And after the day of his wedding, that is Abdullah, the father of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after that night of the wedding night, and what occurred? The light disappeared because the light had been transferred to Amina alayhi salam. And so, this is a wondrous thing. But that was that metaphysical reality, the ruhaniyat. This is something, this is being guarded by Allah. And now, it is born. And he, Sallallahu is born. And so, Iblis cries out. He cries out, Iblis. Allah curse him. And so it goes back to fasting. You see? Lutufini, I was born that night. And then what is the fourth crying out of Iblis? When the Fatiha came down. And what is the Fatiha? 7 verses. How many gates of hell are there? How many gates of Jannah are there? What things are closed and what things are open through 7 verses? So, in this outplaying of the history of Adam and his children, us, as we sit here, and our forefathers, and our foremothers, those who preceded us in generations, of whose names we don't know, we in this generation, we in this time now, are those who are living, those who are engaging, and we are the heirs of this knowledge, of this beautiful prophetic knowledge, that we may know origins, and we know what is going on behind in the knowledge which Allah has revealed to Muhammad ﷺ of these things, so we may know our status. You may know who you are, where you can be. And so, Iblis was cursed and cast out. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restores and brings back to wellness and goodness through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his birth, and through revelation of the Quran, a means by which we, the later generations of the sons and daughters of Adam, we may return back by holding on to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he mentions here he said, Rawa ibn Abi Hatim an Ikrama rahimahullah ta'ala qala Iblis lamma walada Rasulullah when the Prophet was born, Iblis said, لَقَدْ وَلَدَ لَيْلَةً وَلَا يُفْسِدُ عَلَيْنَا عَمْرَنَا فَقَالَ لَهُ جُنُودُهُ ذهبت إليه فخبرته فلما نادى أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم بعث على جبريل ركضه برجله ركضا وقع بعدان. No, when he was born, you know, the Junud, the minions of Iblis said, you know, go to him. You know, they are witnessing this. Go to him, because he's going to corrupt our work. When this man comes, it's going to mess things up for us. When he comes, so. So he went to go to him. He went to him, but then Jibreel manifested himself and kicked him away, pushed him away, got rid of him. He, Sallallahu was always protected. Even Qayyim Jawzi, you know, talks, you know, one of his narrations, and he talks about during the Uhud, that when it appeared, you know, when things were going so well for the Muslims at Uhud, or actually was going well for them, Iblis shouted out, Qutila Muhammad! Qutila Muhammad! Iblis was there watching. He's always watching. On the sidelines, the Quraysh and their confederates fighting the Muslims, and when it seems the Muslims are going to win, Iblis needs to have a stratagem. He needs to do something to make them lose their strength. And so what he said, Muhammad's been killed! Muhammad's been killed! We shouted out, people heard that. What do? They stopped fighting. And that gave then the Quraysh and their Confederates times to regroup themselves. And then that day, we know how that battle turned out. That's what Shaitan does. And here, Shaitan, his ruse, his stratagem was to shout out that Muhammad had been just killed. And that just stopped people. And we know what happened. Rasulullah passed and met his Lord. And Sayyidina Umar was dumbfounded. People were shocked. And the one who had a level head was Sayyidina Abu Bakr. He had a level head. He knew exactly, because he knew the reality of things. So, Iblis works that way. And it mentions here الزبير ibn Bukar وابن عساكر عن معروف ابن حزيب رحمه الله تعالى قال كان إبليس يتحرك سموات سبعة فلما ولد عيسى حجب من 3 سماوات وكان يصل إلى عربة فلما ولد محمد حجب من 7. When Iblis would move through the 7 heavens, but when Isa was born, he was barred from 3. And when Muhammad was born, all 7 were barred from him. Muhammad comes to push back the darkness of Iblis. I mean, you gotta really think about that for a second. I mean, you have to start thinking about this for a second. Iblis is always there to whisper, to call, to incite. But Muhammad has been given to us as one thing that he functions as, and you have to receive that. The reality of it is to push that back. Push that back. And one of the things he pushed back in these narrations here, and one is narrated here, I won't read the Arabic because I'll take time, but on the night he was born, this narration on this page, and on this page, these narrations about how the idols toppled over. The idols toppled over. And then these voices were, poetic. These voices emanated, indicating that the birth of a prophet was there. And so obviously there are signs of this birth, and these idols, because what does he do? Look, Iblis, the way Iblis gets you to make shirk is to get you to associate with an idol, right? And so for the Quraysh, they had these idols, these stones, wood, palm fronds, how they made them out of? Worshipping them and not worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal. Muhammad, when he came, he didn't fear. He didn't fear for his ummah that they would fall back into that idol worship. He didn't fear that. He feared the dunya would be opened up to him, and the dunya would trick us and deceive us as it tricked people before us, and and that's, tanafasu ha kama tanafasuha, and you will take pleasure in it as they took pleasure in it. وَتُهْلِكُكُمْ كَمَا أَهْلَكْتُمْ, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them. But he never feared that his people will go back to idols. So Iblis lost hope in that. With us, we get back to idols. So, but there's one thing he's not lost hope in. It's not the idol of metal and steel, but it's the idol of yourself. That's where Iblis can get you. That you won't prostrate before a stone statue, but you will prostrate before your nafs. He'll get you there. And you have to be mindful of that. On this night that we commemorate the birth of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah has brought forth to you a man to be emulated, followed, mimicked. As I've said many times in this masjid, and I will always say it, you must strive to know him more and more. You must reflect on him, and reflect on your own deficiencies as you place him before you as a metric and measure of yourself. If you ever see me do something in this masjid that you know with absolute clarity is something that is clearly against him, then if you come up to me and you point that at and you give that to me, I will be your best friend. I will not think that I know better. Because any person who can teach me something of Muhammad or something that I haven't acquired or don't know, that person is my best friend. It's what I believe. Because I've got only so many years or days maybe left to live, and I've got to get as much as I can. I've got to clothe myself as much as I can. Because I may clothe one day and disrobe some other day. You know, I can take something on this day, but I might lose it some of the time. So it's a constant work. So I advise us to that. I look forward to this coming Sunday. Now, I'm not quite sure what everyone else is going to think about a bunch of Muslims walking down the road, and hopefully people will actually stop and read those banners. Maybe someone will actually pull over and actually talk to us. Okay? Because that's important. For us to make a public display of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This Christmas season, you know, we've seen it everywhere. People's yards, nativity scenes, Christmas lights, snowman, whatever that stuff is there. So it's sort of fortuitous that the Mawlid is coming in at the same time as Christmas. You know. Probably next year, I think I'm going to put a bunch of lights on in my neighborhood or my home, and I'll get something nice in Arabic and have it flashing, and sort of counter the guys across the street with reindeers and Santa Clauses. You know, I'm going to do that. Just got to prepare for it. Take from this night. I know you're sitting here and you're always, this guy will quit talking now so we can have something to eat. Da, 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 da. But it's not about that. These are the things you should eat right here. Eat these books. Eat that information, that khabar that's come to you. Those are the things I wanted to share because it's going to be, you know, we got things to do tonight. I will go through this Turkish Ottoman Mawlid, a section of it one day, so you all can benefit. You can experience something that you've not probably heard before in your life. It's very beautiful, and inshallah we'll do that one day. But I'll let you go. I'm going to sit over here, as I always do, so out of the way. Ask you for your forgiveness. Ask you for your patience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us this night. May He increase our love for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May He increase our desire to be like Him more and more. May He use this night, because of our intention to be here, as a kafara for sins. Our sins can be effaced, removed, and our love for Him increases. And may we find that tomorrow, after this night, that we have more desire and more yearning and more longing to be like Him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Ini